Thank you دكتور عائشة. بعد قليل نبدأ الجلسة السادسة حضورنا الكريم، وهي تأتيكم بعنوان إعداد الجيل القادم لعصر الابتكار اللانهائي. تتناول بالتوضيح هذه الجلسة أو الحديث الشيق الذي سيكون بعد قليل أثر الذكاء الاصطناعي وشبكات الجيل الخامس والطباعة ثلاثية الأبعاد، وأيضاً سلسلة الكتل والواقع المعزز في اقتصاد المعرفة. يحدثنا في هذه الجلسة جيس سامت، نائب الرئيس السابق في شركة ديلويت. شكراً لكم.
Good afternoon, everybody. How's your energy level? Hope it's good, because we're going to go through a lot in a real short period of time to get you used to the pace of change that you're going to see in your lifetime. Over the next 6 years, half of the jobs on planet Earth will disappear. That's going to be massive disruption for most countries, most city-states, most places. We are changing faster than Darwinian rates. Our culture and our technology are colliding at a time that is challenging our civics institutions, our educational institutions, how we live, how we work, and how we play. And preparing our children for that world is a huge challenge. If someone that had died 200 years ago came back suddenly, they'd be amazed at everything in Dubai. The buildings, the structures, everything, except the classroom. The classroom hasn't changed in 200 years, and that's the problem. So let's talk about exponential technologies, technologies that are changing faster. So none of this should be strange to you that the biggest hotel chain in the world doesn't own a single building. The biggest taxi company in the world doesn't have a single car. The biggest media company in the world doesn't make a single piece of content. The largest retailer has zero inventory. And the fastest growing currency comes from no nation state. What all of these have in common is leveraging massive amounts of data. If I leave you with one thought today, it's this: the only competitive advantage you have in business in the 21st century is being able to find insights from your data faster than your competition. So we're all going to be disrupted. But disruption isn't about what happens to you. It's about how you respond to what happens to you. So let me give you an example of disruption. 10 years ago, before broadband, there was already computer dating. Before the world was swiping, they used to go to websites and they could date. And with broadband, 3 friends of mine sat down and said, wait a second, with broadband we can have video. We're going to make a video dating site so you can see the personality, hear the voice. We're going to be so rich. And they named it Tune In, Hook Up. And this was the very first video for dating this guy in front of the elephant at the zoo. That really gets women excited. So what happened was, there was one tragic flaw with their business. No one wanted to date these losers. But they looked at their data and they found something surprising. They may not want to date this person, but they wanted to show all their friends what was available. So they shared the videos. So they changed the name of Tune In, Hook Up to YouTube and became billionaires their first year with zero revenue. That's disruption. A new billionaire is created every 48 hours. A self-made billionaire, they didn't inherit it, they didn't come from money, they didn't come from the right countries, the right schools. They're looking at the world differently. And everything that they're doing can be taught. I spend most of my life now traveling the world teaching people how to become self-made billionaires. If you would have told me when I started out that dozens of my friends would have become billionaires, I would have asked you what was in your pipe that you were smoking. It didn't seem conceivable to me at that time. So, let me give you another example of a friend. To see if you're understanding my English and paying attention, quick question. How many of you have been at the airport and your flight was canceled? Happens to all of us. Most of us just sit there. A friend of mine was sitting there and goes, wait a second. Counted the number of people that were stranded, went to see what it cost to charter a plane, did the math so he and his girlfriend could fly for free, and that's how a high school dropout music exec starts an airline. It is that simple. In the course of my career, I've gotten to work with and partner with some of the most disruptive, forward-thinking minds on the planet. And what I've learned is there's 5 things that I'm going to teach them you today that you can do starting today to think like these people and change your life and change the world. The other thing about these billionaires is they're getting younger and younger and younger. Kylie will be the first self-made billionaire at 21 without any money from mom and dad. So we're not going to focus on all the exponentials, but three that are going to affect the UAE more than any other will be cryptocurrencies, augmented reality, and my favorite, the electric drill. Again, for my entertainment, not yours. How many people own an electric drill? Keep your hand up if you have 2. 3? Don't visit him. Scary, just teasing. So I'll get to that in a second. So if there's anything I'm trying to get across today, business as usual is dead, okay? And here's how much. I told you jobs are going away. Here's a picture, my favorite picture from the US of 3 failed things. Borders was a book chain. We understand the Amazon story. Blockbuster was a harder story to understand. Their competition didn't name themselves, I'm going to mail you a DVD in the mail flicks. They named themselves Netflix. They said their secret plan. And still nobody paid attention. But the third one is one that Dubai needs to pay attention. The third failed business here, notice the weeds in the parking lot? The changing of retail, autonomous vehicles, we won't have parking lots. What we use buildings for will completely change. Organizations don't need to be in one building anymore. People don't need to park cars that they don't own anymore. So what happens to all of our real estate? How do we plan our cities? What is the future? There was a time when you wished your child to go get a job at that big company, have that security. Well, of the original Fortune 500 companies, only 57 are left. So it's not security that robs ambition, it's the illusion of security. And the ones that survive, they disrupt themselves. I've had 3 jobs where I was brought in at the top of a company to be an intrapreneur. Universal Studios, EMI, and Sony. And the existential threats were real. But I'll give you one example that you know, because I see so many people holding up iPhones. Apple is a failed computer company. Apple never got to double-digit penetration in the desktop or the laptop. So Steve said, let me try something else. Let me go into consumer electronics and go against the Walkman and come out with the iPod. That worked out pretty good. Then he looked at Nokia with 47%. Half of the phones in the world were Nokia. He said, let me go after the phones. That worked out pretty good. They have patents and are working on self-driving cars. They even have patents on tennis shoes coming out. Number one problem you have, your watch, your phone need to be charged. Kinetic energy in the heel of the shoe, so you can call mom and go, hold on, mom, I'm charging my phone. And that's what we'll be seeing next coming out. So here is what is causing disruption. If you can push the button, my assistant. This is my desk when I graduated college. Everything on there was physically manufactured in a factory, shipped on a ship, trucked on a truck, stocked by a stock person, sold, and every one of those things, one by one, has dematerialized. Our world has gone from buying physical things to ones and zeros. Every one of you, I don't care if you make $1 or you're a multimillionaire, the majority of your income goes to digital goods. A mortgage is digital, health insurance, credit cards, internet access. So one by one, all of these things have been replaced, and we've replaced unskilled labor with skilled labor to make apps. And that which isn't physical, we'll get into, that has to stay physical, we'll get into at the end. So in the beginning, we're automating with robotics the simple jobs, the cashiers, the cooks. But I was independent vice chairman of Deloitte. Accounting completely can be done by AI. Accountants will be losing their jobs. Law firms, completely. The I will work 20 years to become a partner, that model's gone. So what's causing this? All of these exponential technologies. 5G allows more data to go faster. Edge computing. We will now have on us more computing power than the US military. Think about that. And we're using it to watch a cat play on the piano. So, what's going to change is we're going from a text culture to a screen culture. We are post-literate. a fancy word for illiterate. As a book author, I'm not thrilled about this. And as a slight lecturing since I've got the mic, those that can read and don't are no better off than those that can't and don't. So, what's going on? Our phones will now identify objects in our environment. What's important about that is we'll no longer be searching for information, it will recognize information. I was recently down in Costa Rica, beautiful country, was going through the rainforest. What they didn't tell me is everything in a rainforest is there to kill you. Don't touch this plant, it'll kill you. The snake, it'll kill you. This will kill you. So if you get bit by a snake and you hold your phone up, you don't want to know the Latin name of that snake. You want to know, is it poisonous, or how many minutes do I have to call a loved one? That's what object recognition is all about. So we're entering the fourth of the transformations of computing. The first connected man to an intelligent machine. The only thing that separates us from the animals is not language or tools, animals have both, is that we can store information outside of ourselves. The second, the internet, connected us to all of mankind's information. The third, mobile, allowed us to take all of man's knowledge of the past 14,000 years and carry it with us. But augmented reality will now bring that to heads-up display. We presently spend 5 hours a day staring at that phone. Bad for the neck. You will have it in your glasses in front of you. Energy will be disrupted. Manufacturing is disrupted. The number of jobs going away are unbelievable. But at the same time, we're talking about new trillion-dollar business opportunities. Intellectual capital levels the playing field. You do not have to be in London or New York. You do not have to be in a city. You do not have to be in a first world country. Any business can start anywhere. We are all one click away from 7 billion consumers. You only have to be right for a nanosecond to make $1 billion or change the world. It's that easy. This is an example of today's factories. If you could hit my second video. What's interesting about this is you notice all the happy workers. Sound down. They work 7 days a week. They don't have pensions. They also don't go to the cafeteria. They don't go dry cleaning. They don't go to the gas station. Each robot replaces 8 workers. And so what we're having is anything that can be automated will be automated. I'm not preaching that this is good or bad. I'm just stating an inevitable fact. Self-driving cars will eliminate tens of millions of jobs. The number one job on US tax returns is a driver, a truck driver, a car driver, fire department. All of that will go away. Not only that, but you're looking at the picture of the first 3D printed car. You can print a car at home. You can 3D print anything. You can 3D print in food, in medical. Last week, for the first time, there was a 3D printed human lung put in a human. It also opens opportunities. I come from Los Angeles. We spend 3 hours a day going nowhere. Now, you can go nowhere in style, watch movies, have your Netflix, whatever you may want to be doing. But let's just focus on one exponential, 3D printing. I know 3D printed parts are made for Airbus planes here in Dubai, but 320 million manufacturing jobs will be going away. You'll have just-in-time manufacturing, exact inventories. A professor of mine, I teach how to build a high-tech startup at USC. A professor of mine invented a technology. You can build an entire house in 2 days. You know how rich he's going to be from that? Not very. Competition can do it in 1 day. That's disruption. But let me tell you how you put these things together. All that an entrepreneur does is solve problems. You do not sell things. Solve a problem for 5 people, you're popular. Solve for 1 million, you're successful. So 3D printing. Heaven forbid, God forbid, your child was born missing fingers or a limb. They wouldn't get a prosthetic till they're a teenager because they're very, very expensive and they grow too fast. So think of that child would not be asked to join and play in different sports teams, to be invited over. Their personality would change. Their whole future would change because of that. But for under $15, you can 3D print a prosthetic. But the entrepreneur took it one step better. They went to Disney and they got a license. So now you cannot just have that prosthetic, but you can be Frozen. You can be Iron Man. Oh, I want Darth Vader on my team. Now the kid's popular, has self-esteem, and let me tell you the input of this. This young woman just did a concert a few weeks ago. She was born with no limbs, played beautifully. That's what a 3D printer can do. It can solve new problems and create new opportunities. Anybody have chicken for lunch today? In the US, that's how we get our chicken. I know the last person was talking about running around on a farm and all that fun stuff. No, but that era is ending too. Having cattle take up acres and pollute the environment, and I eat meat, I'm not a veggie, is now being replaced. You can now make meat in a lab. They bred hemoglobin in plants. Hemoglobin, the thing that makes blood red. They can now make a burger that has no meat that bleeds. You can make halal pork. You can make kosher bacon. You can make a vegan burger. You can make all of these things. This is happening now. If you haven't had the fake beef burger yet, it tastes identical. It's a little mushy. They have to figure out how to make it thicker. You can also 3D print cornea so the blind can see. We had the first 3D printed nose transplant. Complete success, so you don't have the rejection of waiting for donors or dead parts. CRISPR, I don't have time to go into it, but CRISPR is gene editing. The Chinese finally went public on something I've talked about and written in my book for 5 years. You can make it that your soldiers can't get certain diseases that other countries can. So we have ethical issues coming into this. But you can solve. In the US, we have tremendous guidelines against using CRISPR, but this young girl had literally 1 month left to live. She had leukemia. So they allowed gene editing. They went in, took the leukemia out. She's completely cured and will live a normal, full life. That's disruption. Let's talk about digital currency. What happens when biometrics and ones and zeros start becoming the banking? We become the ATMs. Banks don't sit with vaults of money. Most money exists as ones and zeros. So it can now move seamlessly across borders anywhere, anytime. China did $5 trillion in mobile payments this year. They skipped the credit card era. When I started doing business in China and you want to get a plane ticket and you have to change it, you have to go to the bank and get stacks of cash to go get a new plane ticket. They wouldn't take any credit card. Now, you wipe your phone. All that data tracks everything about what you buy, what you need, and makes the businesses more efficient. But what happens instead of a Bitcoin or something that a startup does, what happens to currencies when Amazon comes out with a coin or Apple comes out with a coin? It's borderless, it's trusted, it's rational, and you don't have to worry about how stable is the country that issued it. So money will move frictionlessly, peer-to-peer, everywhere. It will solve credit for the 2 billion unbanked. It'll allow micro loans. I can go into this later of a project that I'm working on that's giving credit to the 2 billion poorest people. So this isn't fantasy. This stuff is happening now. The unbanked, by the way, is not just a developing world problem. Of households in the US of A, headed by somebody 30 years or younger, half don't have a bank account. This is a huge issue and a huge opportunity. And all of this is solved by digital cryptocurrency. So Bitcoin may have been the experiment. The way to think of Bitcoin is not will it work, won't it, is it successful? Bitcoin was DOS. We wouldn't have computers and phones in our whole world had we not been through the first step of DOS. What will end up winning? I don't make those bets. But you already have two nations, Zimbabwe and Venezuela, whose currencies have completely failed. And instead of going to the dollar for trading, they've gone to digital. Russia, also in trouble with their currency, is going to be issuing a digital currency. And you'll see less and less nations have their own currency and more becoming rational. Why does it work? There's no mystery to blockchain. There's nothing special to understand. All that it means is instead of trying to secure stuff and encrypt stuff, anything that you could build to protect your data, you put a moat, you put frogmen, you put bazookas, you put tanks, somebody else will get it. So why not put it all out there on 1 million computers so nobody can alter it? The only way to alter a blockchain today is to have more computing power than Google. So if a blockchain got altered, there's only one company on the planet that could have done it. Don't take my word for it. Take the International Monetary Fund. They agree the era of countries being able to print paper as much as they want is over. And that fundamentally changes. But what it brings in is all that a currency is a basis of trust. We used to trade seashells was the original currency, then silver. When the explorers went to South America to get gold, they couldn't understand why the Spanish wanted gold. You can't make a knife out of it, can't make a shield, it's soft. We trust that it's of value. So we will now see AI systems allow you to have better control of your finances and change the world. Last year, I had 1,500 employees working on blockchain projects. The most successful we did for the 3 largest banks in the world. It's now used by 20 banks. A cryptocurrency that only the banks have. No consumer, no hacker, nobody else, for cross-border settlements. Instead of sending money from here to Japan and it taking 3 days, it's instant, it's accurate, it's flawless. You can trust in the blockchain. What does this all have in common? Data. Data beats opinions every time. The last speaker was great about saying a robot should be your friend. Data's your friend. Invite it out to lunch. Invite it to every meeting. Make your decisions based on data. A/B test everything. I can't tell you how many times I've been absolutely right until I looked at the data. 99% of all data is not analyzed. This year in 2018, we've created more data than the history of mankind up until 2018. And that statement will be true in 2019, 2020. We are exponentially increasing the amount of data, and we're not analyzing or looking at it for what's important. The most successful companies are driving most of their business from data analytics. That's the secret. And brands and trust will be built off of data and those insights. So, more data requires more creativity. I know at this point in the talk, some of you are going, well, I'm not an engineer. Every one of you has written at least as much computer code as Steve Jobs, who built a $1 trillion company. Steve was not an engineer either. So it's not about being an engineer, it's about thinking and asking the right creative questions to find the insights for the new opportunities for change. We will have globally a shortage of hundreds of thousands of doctors. We will be more responsible for our own medical care, and our bodies will give sensors, so instead of going to a doctor after a heart attack, my little earpiece will tell me, "Hi, Jay, if you don't change anything, I guarantee a heart attack in the next 72 hours. I think I'd listen. And you can do it with grandma who doesn't understand all that. You can see her vitals. So this is a huge thing. So let me get to why I am passionate about augmented reality. This year, in 2018 in the United States, 80 million pairs of glasses were sold that cost more than $100 a pair that came with one app, Focus. Another 50 million came with a second app called Sun. You get my point. We're willing to buy an expensive pair of glasses that only do one thing. So if I could sell you a pair of glasses right now that translated anything that you read into a language you comprehended and it was $200, you would buy it. Those are coming out. The best way to predict the future, ladies and gentlemen, is to hang out with the people coding it. So I've played with all of these. One of the major companies already has a contact lens that works. That's, I call witchcraft, that's amazing. But imagine if you're going to Southeast Asia and you want to make sure you don't accidentally order dog on the menu. You'd buy this pair of glasses. So, this is what the future will look like. If you turned on all the filters, it would look like Times Square and you were on acid. But you won't. You don't have every app on your phone. You have less than 10 that you use. The same thing will be in this world. This is why Apple has to be there. Facebook has to be there. Google has to be there, or they don't exist. Your brand and your company will not exist in this world. Today you could do it with your phones, and there's a lot of examples of that. My favorite is there's a little zoo in Tokyo that you can't figure out how to get to from the train station. Hold up your phone or wear your glasses. You can follow penguins down the street. They motion captured real penguins. It's really cute. But let me talk about what people don't think about. The amount of investment in this is huge, so I won't have to go into those numbers. You could go into a store and ask about products. You could turn any wall into a store. But everybody thinks augmented is about adding things. Augmented reality can subtract things. So you just came from the doctors and the doctor told you, you have diabetes, you can't have sugar. You could stand in the supermarket with 40,000 products and say, show me the products with no sugar. And everything else will disappear off the shelves. There's a company that's scanning every product. Or I want stuff for the keto diet. Or I want what I saw in this magazine. So if you are not on that shelf, you don't exist. Billboards will not be seen, they will be usurped. Signs will appear in the sky. The street will change color. All if you're the one. Now we get to my favorite part, the electric drill. According to the Drill Association, I couldn't make this up. In your life, you will drill for 13 minutes. IKEA bookshelf. If that's all you're going to drill for, why own a drill when a drone can bring it to you in the morning? You drill, you rent it, drone takes it away to the next person, they drill for 2 minutes. This is called the sharing economy. Those things that are still physical, we're not going to own. Uber is a sharing economy. Airbnb is a sharing economy. Everything that can be. A Birkin bag, why pay $14,000 if you just want it for the one night? You can get it from a company that will let you share it. Designer clothing, it's changed fashion with a company called Rent the Runway. So we will no longer be consuming as many things as we will use data to optimize what we want, so we don't have to move that drill around and all these other things in boxes and stuff. And what ties this all together is a good consumer experience. So CX is the new frontier of really figuring out. Your next Uber will tie in with your Netflix to know what's on your playlist, how long your ride is, and suggest what it is. Guys, you always forget your wife's birthday or anniversary. The data already knows it. When Uber picks you up, there'll be flowers in the back seat, and you'll have the choice between buying them or being single again. So that's what's happening. So let's get into how to think like a disruptor right now. You're not going to get a big idea doing the same old thing that you've always done. You're here at a conference, you're halfway there. You're getting out of your routine, you're trying to learn. If you want something you've never had, you got to do something you've never done. Now, most people put limits on themselves. If you took anything in college, you learned that the universe is limitless and keeps on expanding. I couldn't understand it either. But if the universe is limitless and we're made from the same things, we are limitless too. The only one stopping you is you. If you want my whole book in one sentence, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Now, everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing themselves. All disruption starts with introspection. What is holding you back? What don't you believe? In third grade, you missed 3 times 3 on a test and you believe you're not a numbers person and good at math. Really, you know the answer now. Or somebody told you this. Our parents and teachers and well-wishers tried to steer us from failing when failing's the most important thing that we can do. We learn from failing what not to do next. So start looking at the problems in your life and in the world as opportunities. If you have no problems, you'll make a lousy entrepreneur. But if you have problems, odds are somebody else has the same problem. So start looking at these problems, and remember, no obstacle is so big that one person with determination can't make a difference. In fact, history is about stubborn people. It's about people that wouldn't give up. A simple trick is to have a positive mindset. I'm not the hippie, tree-hugging kind of guy. There's a lot of science behind it. But when you start a day with a positive mindset, you light up the synapses in your brain as if you were on drugs. You feel better, you're happier, you're more popular, life is better, and you'll see opportunity. If you're in that funk, the opposite happens. So I start each day with 2 sentences. The future can be better, and I have the power to make it so. and instantly it comes true. So start each day with that positive mindset. And remember, it's not about you. Solve for others to solve for you. That's how you change your life and you change the world. Success begins the moment you decide to be yourself. And so we have to teach young people to fail. What did you get wrong today is the best thing you could ask a child. And not what do you want to be when you grow up, but what problem do you want to solve? That's a dialogue worth having. And the only way you're going to do in a world this way is to commit to lifelong learning. I am 57. Pretend for a moment I was your doctor, and I told you I've learned nothing since I got out of med school 30 years ago. You could be in a wheelchair and you'd run out of the office, okay? Instant cure. Thanks for the courtesy laugh. But the bottom line is, no one's going to hire you unless you continue to learn. You are a piece of meat with an expiration date on you, and so is the knowledge that you contain. So commit to lifelong learning, continue to read. I thank you for your time, and let's go disrupt the world. I'll answer questions after.